Hi and welcome to A Drummer's Guide 2, the podcast all about the things that it takes to be a professional musician, aside from actually playing your instrument, which we kind of take as a given over here. It's a never-ending process. It's the beauty and the curse of it. My name is Emily Dolan Davies. I have been a drummer for the last 26 years, professional for the last 17, and I've been helping other musicians to turn pro since 2018. And that's why I'm here with you today, because I'm hoping that I will be able to shed some light on sort of the ups and downs of being in this industry, because it's a wild ride, let me tell you. Anyway, today we have a question from lovely Phil V, who, he submitted a question on my suggestions box. If you'd like to suggest a question too, if you just go to emilydrums.com/AMA, as in ask me anything, then you are welcome to do that. But anyway, right, I've written down his question so that I can do it word for word rather than paraphrasing, because often I miss stuff. So Phil says, the requirement to promote myself online just to be relevant. I can't seem to get past the idea that just being a decent player is good enough. I can't seem to move past the idea that just being a decent player is good enough and all that's needed. I don't like self-promotion, and content creation takes time, which could be spent becoming a better player. Dude, Phil, let me tell you, I get it. Like, I have had my own journey with social media and posting, and I've sort of, I wouldn't say come out the other side, because it's an ongoing process. Obviously the world changes, it moves, it evolves, and you do have to evolve with it to stay relevant, basically. And whether that's styles of playing, you look back to the 50s and the change between certainly for drummers, going from a jazz kind of oriented background where the backbeat was not a thing, but when that came in, there were a lot of drummers that were not willing or able to adapt, so they fell off at that point when rock and roll sort of came in. It's the same with in the 80s when clicks were coming in, becoming very popular, program drums, all that sort of stuff. A lot of drummers weren't willing to go with it, and therefore they dropped off at that point. So I think that this is another one of those factors that it is just part of our job now, basically. So I wanted to sort of obviously let you into my personal experience with social media and my feelings around it, because let me tell you, Phil, when I tell you that I did everything I could to avoid posting on social media, having a presence on social media, and I'm talking about back in, I think it was 2011 for me, that the change came. And at the time, I must have had maybe, crikey, I don't even know, maybe a Twitter, maybe a Facebook, maybe, I'm not sure, I can't actually remember. But anyway, I wasn't posting my drumming stuff. It wasn't for my professional, it wasn't a professional profile. It was kind of more casual than that, mainly because it was very new at the time, and I didn't know what I should be posting. But what I did know was that I definitely did not want to post anything of me playing, and the reason for that was I was convinced that I would be found out and people wouldn't call me because they would realise that I wasn't a good enough player and all this sort of stuff. Basically, for me, social media was like a mirror, and all I would see in that mirror is the imposter that lived within me. So I know that sounds very grandiose, but it's true. When I look back, that's exactly what it was. It was this mirror that was reflecting my worst fears, and it really did show up in that. So like I say, when I tell you I did everything to avoid it, I was purely kind of going out gigging. I was gigging with everyone possible. I was working myself to the bone. I mean, to the point of burnout, exhaustion, illness, all of that, because I was just like, no, like, let me just get out there and play, because it was working to a point for me. I was I was in covers bands. By that point, I suppose I'd done some work with The Hours, I'd done some work with Tricky, I think, at that point. So it kind of was working, but I wasn't where I wanted to be, put it like that. But rather than tackle this thing that, you know, even at that time seemed very obvious, YouTube was a massive thing, and obviously it still is, but it kind of was becoming very big at that time. And I was just like, no, it's fine. I'm going to do it my way because I'm that awkward person sometimes also. So like I said, I was out gigging as much as I could, and the way that I would find people is I would answer ads on things like, you know, Loot, Gumtree, Star Now. Those were the things that were kind of around at the time. Maybe not Loot at that point, actually. Maybe that had folded by then. But I was just like, I will do everything I can to not have to put something online of me playing. Anyway, that changed in, I want to say 2011. I think it was the back end of 2011 when and I've told this story before, so I apologise for repeating myself, but it is worth repeating. I was at a jam night, and it was a local jam night, because again, that was part of my thing. I will go to all of the jams. And I was playing in the house band. It was a last minute call, and I didn't feel 100%. I remember feeling unwell and like, I'm exhausted. But something in me went, right, just do it. And I was like, all right, fine. By the way, I appreciate, I often sound maybe like I have some sort of multiple personality disorder because I talk to myself a hell of a lot. But anyway, I kind of forced myself to go. And I will say thank goodness I did, because the people that I met that night have changed my life in the long run. But what also happened that night was I got up and I played a Foo Fighters track. And my sister and my parents, I'm pretty certain, happened to be there. And it was Best of You. It was something that I kind of knew. I think I'd played it at that point with a couple of covers bands, so it kind of was in my repertoire, but like loosely, you know what I mean? And I was like, it'll be fine. I can get through it, kind of sketch. So anyway, I got up and I played. I don't even remember who it was with, to be honest, and played it, whatever. It was just another song within the context of this jam night. And I got off stage to have a break. Someone else got up, and my sister was just like, right, you need to post that. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, look, you don't have a presence online. By the way, my sister is an ice skater. She is not a musician, arguably. I mean, she can sing, and I think she did play bass for a while. But anyway, music lover, all of that. But she was like, look, you're not where you want to be. I'm telling you, if you posted yourself playing that will start getting you work. And I was like, I was so like, no. But what I will say is that me and my sister are super close, but she can be a bully. So she was like, no, we're doing this. You're going to film it. I will edit it. So, you know, it became more than just about me. So she was kind of holding me accountable. And she's also 2 years younger than me. She's very wise sometimes. I hate to admit that sometimes, but it's true. And she's like, we're going to do this. And I was like, oh, all right, fine. And in my head, I think, in retrospect, I probably thought, well, if this all goes wrong, not I can blame her, but I have an excuse. You know, I didn't want to do this. And the worst thing that could happen is that I could just take it down. Like, okay. And I think at this point I was kind of at my wit's end in terms of like, I just don't know what to do anymore. I was kind of coming to a point where I was like, I can't do anything more. But anyway, turns out I could do more. I was just avoiding it. I was just avoiding something. So anyway, I went and filmed this video. I wrapped myself in fairy lights, la-di-da-di-da. And when I tell you that when I accepted that social media was part of what my job entailed, it changed everything for me. It really did. And it wasn't just down to this one video, absolutely not, because I continued to post videos past this point for a start. But also what it did was it highlighted to me the importance of creating a performance and being having an element of entertainment. And I don't say that flippantly. I don't say that to undermine my own playing, because obviously at the end of the day, playing is number one, always will be, for me at least. I know that some people have it on a different scale of how important it is to them, and that's fine, that's up to them. For me personally, playing number one. Absolutely, that needs to be solid. Everything else is a bonus. But the point was, I wasn't given the bonuses. And, you know, there are thousands upon thousands of players that are fantastic. But there needs to be other aspects that make you stand out. And for me, that the part of that I was definitely neglecting was the performance side. And the posting on social media thing really brought to the forefront how important and how lacking I was in the performance side of stuff. Because at the beginning of when I first filmed, so if you have seen that video of me playing Best of You, it's a one shot. So it's one shot with 4 different cameras, and I was very purposeful about that. It's not a perfect performance. It doesn't sound, there's elements of it. I'm like, ugh! Even like the first 2 bars, honestly, to this day, not that I've really watched it back, but I'm like, ugh! It makes me feel awful. But it is what it is. And I wanted there to be an element of honesty about it, so it wasn't like, oh, that's not actually her playing. I'm like, mate, do you really think I wouldn't have fixed that if it wasn't me playing? It was kind of like, okay, I need to show my humanness. But my point is, that video was not the first time that I played it. That was probably the 7th time I played it, and it wasn't a playing thing. It was a performance thing. Because the first time I played it, it looked rubbish. It was boring. I was just like, well, why would anyone care? This is rubbish. Like, it sounds all right, yeah, but so what? So what? There are thousands of people that sound good. What is going to be the difference here? And it wasn't being wrapped in fairy lights. It still looked boring. It still looked so boring. So in that moment, it was very confronting for me. It was very confronting. And at the time I also had, because I grew up with Cherise Osei, fantastic drummer, my Bezzy mate, I had a direct comparison, which I don't condone comparing yourself to people, but Cherise at the time was really being so incredibly successful in her career. She was at that time playing with Mika, who was huge. I can't stress to you how worldwide huge he was. I mean, she was on the road probably for 8 months of the year at that moment. And, I was just like, what is the difference? Our playing abilities certainly wouldn't, they were pretty on par with each other, but I tell you what she did fantastically that I just did not have the skill set of yet, and that was performing, and that was creating a compelling performance for the gig. And it was in that moment that I was like, oh yeah, I've really dropped the ball on this. I have really underestimated how valuable that is, I suppose. So that's kind of been my personal journey with social media and how I sort of got over that hurdle. And like I say, I was literally forced. I was bullied into it by my little sister. That's how that happened. But it did change the trajectory of my career for sure. And what I also will say is that growing up, my dad always said to me, he said, look, you can be the greatest player in your bedroom, but if no one knows about it, then it's completely pointless if you want a career, obviously. It's not pointless if you just purely want to be the best player you can be, then all power to you. That's wonderful. There is nothing wrong with that. If you want to have a career, people need to know about you. And back in the day, before I sort of embraced social media, before social media was even a thing, when I grew up, it was MySpace at the very best. And that was probably when I was about 15, 16, maybe older, but no, maybe 15, 16. But anyway, so my network, my opportunities were limited to the gigs that I played, the people that were in the room at the gigs, the people that I knew to reach out to ask them to come down to gigs. I would also hope that it was a decent enough gig with decent enough other musicians that I would do a good job on the night. All these factors into this one moment, and that would bring with it great stress, let me tell you, and pressure, but it really, really limited the scope of what was possible for me, and that is why I worry, Phil, that I don't know what your gigging situation is, but even if you're out gigging 7 nights a week, right? And let me tell you, I hope not for your health because I've done it. It's not good in the long term, not good. Even if you're out 7 days a week, the chances is that a lot of those gigs are going to be at the same venues with the same people watching, and you're not expanding your possibilities and your opportunities. Yes, your playing might be getting better, but even then, probably not, because that would entail the people around you also having the same sort of drive that you do to be a better musician, and you're only as good as the people that are around you. Let me tell you, that is also something I'm very, very particular about in terms of playing with people. I always wanted to be playing, and I still always want to be playing with people that are more experienced than me, so that I can step up my game. And that's just my personal, I just love it. I love the feeling of growth. It's one of my favorite things in music and in life generally. But so yeah, I don't know your situation in terms of your live gigs, but I can tell you it's limited. It is. No matter, even if you're doing all of the things, you are limited right now. You are limiting your possibilities right now. And social media, although it's hard. It's a hard part of the job, If you are doing this full time, we get to do something that we love as a living. But that doesn't mean that we love every part of it. Definitely not. There are parts that it's like, oh, I hate this. But it's the trade-off. It's the job part of our job. That's why I always say, like, whenever I'm doing a job and getting paid for it, whether it be on tour, whether it be in the studio, there are inevitably going to be difficult moments. And it's in those difficult moments, I'm like, right, these are the bits that I'm actually getting paid for. Because the rest of it, I would do for free. If I didn't have bills, I would do it for free. And sometimes I still do. But you know what I mean? It's one of those things where you can't have all the good bits, and you gotta have those contrasting bits to realize how great the good bits are. So I feel like if you kind of I suppose view social media as a different kind of, through a different lens, I should say, and if you see it as this is your window for more opportunities, maybe that will make it more manageable on your brain. But what I will say is that, look, it can be overwhelming, and unfortunately, if you are looking, I know I literally just spoke about comparing myself to Charisse, but if you look left and right on social media, it's very easy to be taken with the volume of posts that you're seeing and all of that. But bear in mind, let's say you're scrolling and you see 30 posts, right? And they're all musicians and they're all doing amazing things. And you're like, oh my goodness, everyone is so amazing. All the production values, it looks amazing. What they're playing sounds amazing. All of this. Okay, that's true. But chances are those 30 people you've just seen, they ain't 30 posts from one person. They're 30 singular posts from one person. So it can be very easy, I think, for your brain to lump it all in together as like, oh my God, it's so overwhelming. There's so much to do. And in all honesty, I'm not sure I've actually admitted to this on the podcast. I feel like maybe I've mentioned it once before. I don't actually follow a lot. Well, I do follow a lot of musicians on social media, but I actually, I silence a lot of them because, and it's not out of any sort of shade or anything. I love the people that I follow. I I love so many musicians, but I do know that for my own well-being and what I'm trying to do in this world, I know that when I see other people posting stuff, it makes me feel insecure. It makes me feel less than. It makes me feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing enough. Oh my gosh, I'm, because for instance, I'm not out on the road at the moment, and I'm thinking, and I'm seeing other people posting about being on the road. I'm like, oh my God, does this mean that I'm not a drummer anymore? Can I not identify as a professional drummer? All this mad stuff comes into my mind. It's not productive. It takes me off my focus of what I'm trying to achieve, what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to bring to the world, how I'm trying to help people, for instance, through this podcast. So I think that maybe I was going to use this word culling. That's not the right word to use. It's too intense. Filtering who you are seeing on your social media. If it's not serving you, if it's making you feel overwhelmed, I think would be beneficial, maybe. Just as an experiment. You can always unmute people. It's not a problem. They don't know. It's fine. It's, I tell people that I've muted them and they're like, of course, like, I totally get it. And I say the same if they say to me, I've muted you. I'm like, dude, I get it. Don't worry about it. So yeah, I'd say maybe do that and maybe start following different accounts that will make you feel more empowered, At the moment, I seem to be getting targeted with a lot of NFL posts, which I'm really enjoying. I've only just gone into NFL, like literally in the last month. Thank you to Gios, by the way. You are a ledge. Not that there's no way you're listening to this, but I love you very much. And I'm a Ravens supporter, by the way. That's who I've decided to support. So think of that. Whatever you will, I love them. So anyway, tangents galore. But what in the world was I saying? I was saying about muting people. So yeah, I'm following more empowering accounts if that helps your overwhelm. Now, in terms of the actual posting on social media, yes, it's overwhelming. And there are ways that you can tackle that in terms of things like batching and stuff like that, or just creating a regular part of your schedule to post on social media. But what I've found to be the best way of doing it, especially if you're starting out, because it can feel like a lot to suddenly bring in this whole new dimension to your schedule, and it can take up time and energy, and it's a lot, especially if you don't have the processes in place. Because I have very I'm the kind of person, I like to be very effective with my time. I only have so much time and energy because when I do things, I do them. All of my everything goes into them. So I know that about myself, and I burn myself out. So I have to be very careful. And you may be the same. So what I would say is to start off with, certainly, rather than trying to bring in a whole new element to your schedule, whether that's daily, whether that's weekly, whether that's monthly, look at how you can leverage your current activities to then bring them to social media so that it's just an addition, a small action that is added on to what you're already doing. So, for instance, Phil, for you, I'm going to assume, I know you shouldn't assume things, but I'm going to assume, I'm creating a narrative here, that you are out gigging lots because you're trying to further your career. Obviously, you want to be a better player, and to me, that makes sense. So in my head, you're doing lots of gigs, so kudos to you. So what I would do in that position is, or what I have done, what I continue to do, is set up cameras at your gigs. So whether that be a stills camera, or I say a stills camera, whether that be your phone with a time-lapse function that you can get a picture every, say, 3 seconds, and then you can go through them after the gig, pick out the ones that you like, and then post them on social media. Fantastic. Hello, look at me, I'm doing the thing. Or it's a video, and what I would say is, sometimes the sound cannot be great on, in fact, often the sound will not be great on a gig, unless you've got a feed from out front. So use it in an artistic, creative way, I would say. So whether that be putting music over the top of it, or whether it be sort of creating a montage of videos with some music that you've recorded. Maybe you have a setup where you can record something. So that's what I often do. So I'll record something in the studio. I'll put a montage of different videos over the top of my drumming. And that seems to work quite well, because then you're kind of showcasing, this is what I look like when I'm playing on stage, therefore come book me for your gig. Like, that's literally the vibe. I know it's probably very crass, but that's it. Like, it needs to serve a purpose. That's the other thing, because it can often feel, I know that I've felt like this in the past, I sometimes still do, where I'm like, this feels very self-indulgent. Why am I posting this? And I think if you can come back to the why, right, I am posting this to showcase the kind of player that I am. So Yeah, I'd say that kind of is my main port of call, is setting up cameras at gigs, because the gigs are happening anyway. You may as well leverage them. And the next day when you're knackered or whatever, recovering, you can just swipe through the photos, you can favorite a few of them. If you want to do a bit of editing on them, fine. If you want to be creative and, I don't know, make collages of them, I don't know. You can do that. But the point is, you have raw material to work with, because when it comes to drummers at least, but certainly musicians as a whole, do not rely on other people to take decent photos of you. They will always get, for drummers, the cymbal head, 100%, and also for any other musician and drummers as well, the worst facial expressions, and they will send it to you going, look how great this is, and I'm like, nah, I look like there is something wrong with my nervous system. What is happening? So yeah, it kind of gives you a bit of creative control. Also, you get to present yourself how you want, which is so empowering, let me tell you. So that's the first leveraging point I would make. And then let's say, hypothetically, if you're not out gigging that much, and again, that's fine too, if you are practicing a lot, if you're in the studio a lot, practicing, rehearsal studio, whatever, maybe create you want to be better at XYZ. Maybe have a goal of performing a song. Say you're like learning a new style of music. Have a song that is a really good representation of that style to aim towards, so that then you can film the end result, including hopefully decent audio, and you can put that out on social media. And it doesn't need to be the full song. It can be a 30-second clip of you playing it. That is great. It's all content. And the other thing is that it gives you extra accountability, extra motivation, all that sort of stuff. So I think that is also a really good way to leverage what you're already doing if you're not out gigging that much, but you are in a studio practicing. And again, it gets you out to the wider world and offers up an opportunity for people to go, hey, come and play with me. You know what I mean? What I will say also on that side of things is that be aware that if you post your process of getting to that point, I would encourage to do that on things like stories that expire after 24 hours, unless you are a teacher. Because I feel like when people come to your profile, if they want you to play with them, they need to see confidence, they need to feel safe with your playing. So they need to see that, to feel settled, secure, certain that you can do the job. If you're a teacher, it's really useful to show that for your students. So, and if you do both, it might be worth either having separate profiles, or there needs to be some sort of separation there, because those two scenarios are incredibly different. When people, like I say, if someone wants to employ me, they need to come to my profile and be like, wow, yeah, she knows what she's doing. Like, we're good. We are good, get her in. They don't want to be going, oh yeah, no, she really can play. But then this post, she sounds a bit wobbly, and little do they know, because I wanted to talk about the process of getting to that point. They don't care. All they know is what they hear, they see, and they feel, and that will put them off. So just to put that out there, that is a thing. Again, is it correct? I don't know. Maybe not, maybe. I don't know, but I'm just saying that is psychologically, that's what's going on there. So make sure that what you do put out, it's concise, it's coherent, it's confident. I don't know what I'm going on about, but anyway, that's just a little aside. But like I say, if you do want to actually document the process, stories is a good way to do that. And then the third thing that you could do, and again, this could be I suppose it could be in a gig situation, provided everyone else is happy with this, or in a rehearsal room, and that is to live stream whatever you're either practicing or what your final performance is that you're working towards, because good for social media, also you can repost later down the line, all of that. But let me tell you, there will be nothing that ups your game in terms of performing under pressure than live streaming to an audience, even if it's an audience of one. If anything, it's almost worse when it's an audience of one, because creating that environment and then normalizing it and still being able to deliver, and that will be in terms of your sound, in terms of your performance, consistency, all these things. And any insecurities, trust me, they will come up. Any weaknesses in your playing or performance or whatever, they will come up and you can address them. Because, yeah, that is one thing that I know about having an audience. I've experienced it multiple times, over and over. I find it really useful. It's incredibly terrifying. It doesn't ever stop being terrifying, but if you can normalize it and perform to a standard that an audience or a live stream audience does not affect you and actually ends up energizing you, that is a great position to be in, because you will be able to not only get on stage and do things without even being affected by it in any sort of uncontrollable way. Instead, you'll be able to enjoy it. Things like auditions, there'll be a breeze, because it's just like, mate, I've done this so much that it is not a thing, and you're able to be yourself. I think that's the key to things like auditions. It's just come in, be yourself. If it's a good fit, great. If not, that's fine. As long as you feel you represented yourself well, that's all you can hope for, like 100%. That's all I ever aim for. I never take those things personally if I don't get the gig. And I still don't get the gigs, just so you know. Just so you know. The other thing that I did also want to flag, and I'm not saying that this is the case with Phil, absolutely not. You know, and again, it comes back to my experience of this. I know that the question is sort of more around, you know, I don't want to feed into this narrative that, you know, you have to be on social media to be relevant and all of this. But I do wonder if, and tell me I'm wrong, Phil, or anyone else that is listening or watching this, I wonder if the posting on social media thing, there's actually something else going on with that, in terms of, is it making, like, are you, in the same way that I did, are you watching stuff back and going, oh, I don't like this. I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't like what I'm hearing. I'm not coming across as I thought I was, because I will tell you, and like I say, I've done this. I think we all do it as humans. We're very good at doing mental gymnastics to find any other explanation for what we're feeling, what we're seeing, what we're experiencing than the Occam's razor, if you like, probably the most obvious answer. And for me, it was a combination of imposter syndrome, but the imposter syndrome was, I'm going to be found out as being not good enough. And when I would watch stuff back, that would feed that narrative, because yeah, the playing was okay, but I looked bored. It looked rubbish. I looked rubbish, and it was uninteresting. And the reality was, as I look back, you know, I just think, no, it isn't good. It isn't good. It sounds good. Doesn't look good. Looks lame. I looked lame. And by admitting that and then working on it, that was a massive turning point. It was massive for me. So I wonder if it would be worth having a look at some other possible reasons that you're feeling like this with social media. Maybe it is simply that it's just very confronting and you're having to face things that weren't relevant, you didn't think were relevant. And let's say you're in a position where maybe you're not gigging as much as you'd like, and in your head the narrative you're saying is, I just need to be better, then I will get more gigs. No, not necessarily. And I will say that if you want to have an example of that, like, okay, I tell you, I was almost going to swear, I am a walking example of that, right? I am not the greatest player in the world, absolutely not even slightly. I have many flaws in my playing. However, let me tell you, I know how to put on a show. I know how to entertain people. I know how to perform behind the drums. That is a big part that I get the call for gigs. Definitely. I've mentioned this actually fairly recently, maybe even in the last episode, The Voice Kids. I got that gig because of my personality. It was, yeah, I could play, obviously, but because I wouldn't have stayed if I couldn't actually do the job. But the main reason, and I was explicitly told this because the MD said to me, he literally said to me, you're probably wondering why I called you, because obviously there are hundreds of players in the UK that I could call and that can do the job. And I was like, you're literally addressing the elephant in the room that I'm too scared to ask. And he said, you're probably wondering why I want you. And I was like, yes, actually, I am. Can you please enlighten me? And the reason he said, I just think your whole attitude, your positive vibes, all of that, I just think will be great on this gig. It was nothing to do with my playing. And the only reason that he knew that, well, not the only reason, one of the reasons he knew that is because we'd spent some time together, like years before. But also, he had been constantly reminded by my social media, because I do these talking to camera pieces and all of that sort of stuff. He was reminded of my personality, of my attitude, of the way that I approach things, all these things. And he thought, yeah, good fit, let's go with that. It weren't nothing to do with my playing. Absolutely not. Same with, Kim Wilde. Kim Wilde already had a drummer. She didn't need another drummer. But I did one Deb gig and she liked the way I performed. So, I guess we have 2 drummers now. Like, it's just, you can write your own rule book when you start leaning into all these other elements to what being a professional is. And the playing, it's important. It's incredibly important. But all the other stuff, it's just as important. And I know that that's really hard to take sometimes, because we're very much, it's ingrained in us that the playing is everything. And yes, it is, to a point. It needs to be on point. There's no negotiation on that front. Absolutely not. Oh, that was the other thing that I was going to say. Like, I'm saying that I'm not the greatest player in the world, right? But I can bring something to a gig. And I'm not the only one. Look at some big gigs, big well-known artists. The players on them, they're fine. They do the job. They're not, Dave Weckl. They're not, I don't know. They're not they don't need to be the world's greatest. A lot of these people, at the end of the day, they're pop songs. They're not crazy complicated. And unless you're playing with Nick Kershaw, they are actually quite complicated pop songs. But, so my point is that you don't need to be the most incredible player on the planet. You don't need to be Vinnie Colaiuta. Actually, that can sometimes work against you, if I'm honest. But if you know how to bring a performance to the stage, you're more likely to get on the gig. You're more likely to get the call. If you're fun to watch, if you're enjoyable to be on a stage with, if you turn around to a drummer and they're smiling at you, they are vibing with you, it is a thing. Why would you not want someone like that on stage with you? And again, you can show that on social media. That's the brilliance of it. It's the way that I see social media, and I've said this multiple times, I'll say it again. I see it like it's your personal marketing platform, and I think it is one of the most empowering things to happen to particularly session musicians in the last 10 years. I think it is absolutely fantastic, and if you can find a way to make it work for you and leverage what you're doing, as I mentioned before, I think it can literally change the trajectory of your career. 100%. I know it because it's happened to me. I see it happen to others. I'm working with students that it's happening to right now. It's fantastic. I know it can be overwhelming. I know it can be a lot. But when you actually start getting into it, and again, a lot of my students have found this, it actually becomes quite fun. Like, it actually does. It becomes a creative outlet. It's a different one, but it's certainly still a creative outlet. So, Phil, I hope that this has helped in some ways. I can't tell you how much this resonates with the 23-year-old version of me. Like, it really, really does. It will be okay. Just try leaning in a bit and seeing how you feel about it. See if you can create some consistency with it. And it is a part of our job now. It just is. I don't know what to tell you. It would be like me saying that the click now isn't part of our job as a drummer or generally as a musician. Like, it is. And yeah, you can shy away from it, it's just going to limit your opportunities, and I don't want that for you. I want all of the opportunities, because it's the other thing. You're more likely to be finding yourself in a situation with musicians that are really well aligned with you and your musical tastes and the way that you play. And the way that you're going to do that is showcasing yourself to the world, not just to the venue that you're playing in with the musicians that are on the stage with you. Anyway, I shall leave it at that. I hope that has helped. If you are listening and have your own questions about a particular struggle that you're having right now, whether it's mentally, whether it's physically within a gig or whatever else, then you can ask me your own questions. Please, can I just say 2 things? Please ask it as a question, because it really helps me. Don't just put 2 words, because I'm like, it's too big a scope. I need specificity, so the more the better. So please, please, please be specific. And also, if you want me to give you a shout out, please don't just say yes, please, because I don't. The form is anonymous by default. So please actually leave your name if you want a shout out. But yes, anyway, if you go to emilydrums.com/AMA, that's emilydrums.com/AMA, as in ask me anything. But yeah, if you've enjoyed this episode and want to share it around, get it to the greater masses, I would appreciate it. So feel free to like, share and subscribe. If you want to go the extra mile, leave a review. I would love that. I would really, really appreciate that. I actually had a look. People are actually leaving reviews. I was like, I should probably check this, and they are. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the people that have already. Also, if you would like to support this podcast now, you can on Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/EmilyDrums, that's patreon.com/EmilyDrums. And if you want to follow me on the socials, Instagram is the place. It's the only one that I'm active on at the moment. And if you go to instagram.com/HeyEmilyDrums, that's at HeyEmilyDrums. It's my favourite username after just Emily Drums, but that was a complicated situation that happened about 2 years ago now, so I'm not going to go into that. But yes, Hey Emily Drums. Anyway, I hope you're well. I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, whatever you're up to, and I look forward to seeing you next week on another episode. All right, lots of love to you. Bye.
It's